everyone, I'm just going to go right ahead and get started with this disco perm, dance diva, whatever you want to call it. Today we are using a Khaki original in the colour Chalky Charcoal. If you have any comments about my new setup, please make them known. I don't know what I'm doing, so I'm kind of just relying on the help of you guys to make sure I don't know, it's content that you want to see, so yeah, don't hold back, don't be shy. The first thing I'm going to do is separate. I do this pretty much with all of the styles that I do, is separate the part that is actually tied into the length. So I'm just going to clip that away and pin it. And I'm also, just for my own convenience, going to do the same with all of the hair on the top of the head. But whenever I put it into a roller set, I always start at the bottom with all the hair clipped up and then work my way up. And this stuff is going to come last, so that means that we don't need to be taking it down, separating it out, clipping it back up all the time. So you can just keep this part up separate to the rest of it. And then when the time comes, we'll curl that too. So when it comes to this really tight ringlet that we're going to be doing today, the method that I do, at least for this type of curl, you can be quite generous with the size of your section. So I'm going to take a good 4, maybe 5 tracks of hair, and we're going to chuck that into one quote-unquote roller. And that's just because we're winding it so tightly that the actual amount of the hair doesn't matter so much, because it's all going to come out pretty uniform anyway. You'll see what I mean. Now, in terms of the size of the roller, it's not an actual roller that I use, at least for this type of curl. What I have here are actually, what are they? Foam rollers, perm rods, something. They're not perm rods actually, that's different. But we're basically going to use them like they are perm rods. And I've got little bits of stockings. So not like dance tights, but like the sheer stockings that you can get at Coles or Woolies. And it's like, I don't know, $6 for a pack of 2. And you can just cut the legs up. And now you've got these reusable kind of perming end papers, like you would if you went to like the hairdresser and they permed your hair. What they normally do to keep the ends neat is they'll put some paper on the ends as they roll it up into the rod. And we're basically just doing the exact same thing, but using a stocking instead, because that makes it more drag, right? But for the next one, it's probably a bit too wide, so I'm going to have to split it down the middle. I don't think you guys have ever seen me do a roller set. To be honest, they're all pretty much the same for me. I guess you could call it brick formation if you know what that means. But basically, going row by row and alternating where your parts are so that you don't have these weird gaps. That's generally what I will do. But with a style like this, because it's going to be so big and teased and curly and stuff like that, the gaps don't really matter, because there is no chance you're going to see any wefts or see any separation like that. What's that like? I'll find it online and we'll find out. But it's not very big at all. However, I do have even smaller rods for like little detail curls and stuff. Like if you ever wanted to have like a little ringlet coming down the face or something. I've got rods of all sizes for things like that. But basically we're just going to keep going all the way up the head until the entire thing is in these rollers. So I'm going to switch into a time lapse and this will go a lot quicker for you. All right, so that's all done. You can see how that kind of works going up layer by layer. I started with just one, then we went to two, and then we went to three at the widest parts. And then when it comes to on top, like that section that we put aside before, just rows of it all going back. When it comes to doing the hairline bit, I will split it into 3 sections. And for some extra lift, instead of rolling it backwards, we're gonna roll it forwards. So the hair naturally is gonna wanna stick up and forward. That's a little tip for pretty much any size curl. So just taking the middle third and with the stocking end paper thing around my hand, like this, I'm going to grab onto it and then pull it through. And then pull it nice and tight around the end of the roller. Just like that. And then the same for the 2 side sections. And then we're ready to move on to steaming the wig. Also, I think I am in need of a new styling tripod, because this one, I seem to have cracked the adjustable bit here, and it's just too, like, it's not stable enough. You might have seen in that time lapse that it kept falling backwards or forwards or whatever. So I think the time has come to get myself a new one. I'm probably going to get the exact same thing. I think I got it from like Oz Hair Supplies or something like that. This is a great investment, and I would really recommend getting one if you're looking at styling your own wigs. Because like styling on one of those clip ones or clamp ones that sit on the table and a styrofoam head is just way too difficult. I promise you it'll be worth it just investing and getting yourself a proper setup. I've definitely used mine. Excellent, and the entire head is up in these rollers. A nice, even, systematic approach is good. So when it comes time to steam, a general rule of thumb is the tighter your curl, the more steam you want to use. And that's because when you're steaming, it's like difficult for the water and the hot air to get inside the more tightly wound your curl is. So sure, everything on the outermost part is going to be really easy to steam, but that's only the stuff that's close to the root. And the tips of the hair are going to be on the very, very, very inside of that wound up coil. And so you need to take the time to make sure that you're using enough steam so that it can permeate into that hair and give it its nice bouncy curl. Another thing is this is an oven cleaner, not a clothes steamer. Obviously there's no oven cleaner product in it. I just use it for the steaming capabilities or whatever. But if you are someone who is a little impatient like me, or you just are styling a lot of wigs, I definitely recommend upgrading to something a little more heavy duty than those garment steamers that you get from like Amazon or something. An oven cleaner, or a steam oven cleaner specifically, is just more powerful, and it just makes the whole process go a bit quicker. Take a look at this compared to your regular garment steamer. It's much more intense, much more heavy duty, and it just is quicker. And it was like 30 bucks. So whenever you're steaming a wig, you want to make sure that you're moving the bag around so that the steam isn't just going around in a circle, but it's actually like coming up and getting the top of the head as well. And eventually this bag at the top is going to become too hot to touch, and that's what you want, and you want to keep it there until your arm is tired. Okay, so I'm going to let that sit there for a little while, and when I say a little while, I mean the next 5 minutes. But in that 5 minutes, I want to talk to you. This is so dusty. It's not dusty, it's hairspray. But this is a wig oven. And the idea behind it is you can pop the wig in there in its roller set, and there's a little hole that I've cut out here that is the same size as the end of my hairdryer. And this will just speed up the drying process for your roller sets and things like that. So you can chuck it in here, close the door and put the hairdryer in the hole and leave it on like a medium setting and not full blast either. Medium heat and like low speed, I don't know. And you can just leave it for like the next 10 minutes or so and let it dry the hair. Now, if you don't have a cardboard box like this or even a hairdryer, then you can leave it outside or in front of a heater or something like that. Just be careful if you are doing it in front of a heater not to put it too close to the source of heat because you're probably going to melt it. And you might need to experiment with the settings of your hairdryer if you are doing this method, because again, you don't want to melt the heat. You just want enough to speed up the evaporation of all that water. This is what works for me. It's a hell of a lot quicker, and that way I can actually finish wigs in one day instead of having to steam it on one day and then wait overnight for it to dry and then complete it the next day. So get into it, wig oven. Very cheap, very convenient as well. With my wig oven, I make sure to elevate it. So I'll set it on the chair that I use to style and I'll go take 10 minutes of me time. I don't want to put it on the floor because with the amount of hairspray that I use, there's this fine dried hairspray powder that settles on the floor really quickly. Like it starts building up and I have to clean at the end of every single day. And the way hair dryers work, obviously they suck in air from the back and I just don't want to get it clogged up with all that fine dust. So I will elevate it, put it on this little chair here, and then I'll be back in 10 minutes. Okay, so now comes the time to take it out of the wig oven and see how it all turned out. Let's pop her back on here and see those delicious bouncy curls. I had a lovely little break just sitting on the couch watching TikToks while she was in the wig oven, and I even came back a little while ago and turned off the hairdryer so that it could get cool. You never want to take your roller set out when the hair's still hot because you're gonna ruin the bounciness of all the curls. You need to let it completely cool. And there we go. So I'm gonna go through and take out all of the pins and then start removing all of the rollers. And there she is. Look, she's delicious and bouncy and super curly. I haven't brushed her through and I probably won't. And that's because I'd like this hair to stay in these nice, easily discernible sections. And that makes it a lot easier when it comes time for teasing them row by row, which is what we're gonna do now. So, kind of the same story as before when we were putting it up into the rollers. I will always do the hairline as a separate section. So we'll clip that away. Chuck a pin in it. And then the same with the hair on top, because just like the rollers, I tease from the bottom up. And you saw me before how I was taking the hair down, grabbing the next section and putting the rest of it away. We just don't need to do that with all this hair that comes last. So we can just clip it out of the way now and then focus on the back where we're gonna start, the nape of the neck. And you can just use the sections that you made before with the rollers and it should be pretty easy to separate all of them. We're just going to literally just tease from the nape of the neck up. I've got plenty of videos. You've seen me tease before. It's nothing special. Just with this style, don't be afraid to really go for it with your teasing. Pulling it up to the root. Pretty much all of this hair from here to here is not going to be visible at the root. So you don't have to spend the time making sure that everything is, you know, nice and even and perfect and stuff like that, because it's not going to be on display. So what you're really looking for is volume or height. So you can see the difference between this section here going flat and this section that has all this volume here for the next row to sit on. And basically we're just whipping air into this hair like you would with eggs and a meringue. And then once you've done 2 sections, you can just make them nice and neat before you pack in all the root and stuff. And then you want to tease them together because you don't want separation of these big chunks, right? So I'm just going to take about half of this and half of this one and just tease them together. Now, it's really important that you spray as you go with a style like this because you're gonna have so much hair at the end of it that if you're just spraying the outside, there's no chance that you're going to get into the root and preserve all of that shape that you've built. So layer by layer, you're gonna need to spray and blow dry it. Now, it's time for the secret weapon. So, when you have curls this tight, it's very easy for the hair to end up looking fluffy and frizzy and not necessarily good. So, I have here a very special mixture of water and conditioner. You don't have to saturate the hair, just get it wet enough so that when you brush it through, your curls get definition again. Plus, as a side benefit, it makes the wig smell great. So, just brushing the ends, and now you can see those curls are more defined. And while it's wet, and while it's defined, like this, give it another little bit of hairspray. And that way those curls stay defined for longer. And then when you gradually add more and more and more on top of it, they just look luscious and really, I don't know, bouncy and piecey in all the right ways. So I'm gonna continue teasing this wig. I'm gonna go layer by layer using the same sections that I did for the rollers and just teasing it in sections and then making sure those are teased together and then freeze drying all of this teasing at the root and then brushing through some of this conditioner and water. I hope that makes sense. You'll see it in the time lapse and I'll come back to you when we're at the top of the head. Okay, so we have finally reached the crown of the head. That's what she's looking like. I've hairsprayed it and I have teased it and everything like that, but the last thing that I haven't done is that water conditioner mixture, because I just wanted to show you one more time the difference that it makes between this like big frizzy like mess and those really defined curls. So we're only brushing the ends of the hair, and that way we can still retain a lot of this volume, and we're going nowhere near any of the teasing that we did at the root. Careful not to dig in as well too close to the actual wig block, because then you're going to catch the teasing of the layers beneath it. But yeah, this is literally it. And the secret to maintaining curls like this is you need like a wide tooth comb, and every now and again go back in with some more of this mixture of shampoo, conditioner and water, and just give it a little brush every now and again, because you know, if you're wearing this wig often, or you know, you've worn it more than 3-4 times, the curls are going to start getting like a little matted. And so the more regularly you're doing your maintenance on wigs like this, even if it is like just 5-10 minutes, the easier the maintenance is going to be. And you can see how we're getting the look, right? You can see how it's all sort of coming together. Now, when it comes to the rest of the wig, we're gonna focus on the crown. And honestly, it's the exact same thing, but instead we're going to just be teasing all of this back and maybe fanning it out a little bit. And what I mean is we're gonna take those same, the same sections that we curled the hair in the rollers, and we're gonna tease that up and then just sort of like spread it, fan it out, and fan it and fan it. The other thing is we're going to double tease this section because we've got a lot of width on this wig so far. She's coming out to here, but we need height to sort of balance that out. And it's pretty easy to do, especially when you've got a curl as tight as this, because the hair wants to take up space. All I'm gonna do is give it a little spray so that it sticks to the hairbrush. And then I'm gonna tease it once on this side, pulling the hair through, packing it down to the root. And you can see how I'm sort of, it's a larger section that I've got in my hands. So that means that I can tease it in these mini subsections, right? So I'll tease some to this side, then tease the middle, tease it straight back, tease some on this side, tease it off to the right, that kind of thing. And all I'm gonna do now is gather all of this hair, pack in that teasing by just cleaning it up a little bit on the ends. And just packing it down before teasing it forward towards the face. So I'll spin her around. Then you can see we're just doing the same thing, but forward. This one will go quicker because the hair is a little bit more messy to begin with, so it grabs onto the brush really well. And this time, I'm not gonna bother with packing more of that teasing down, because the second time we teased it, hi, my camera died, so it's the next day. I believe I was just telling you about teasing this first section of the hair from the crown twice, once forward, once backwards, and you can see I've kind of just fanned it out along here. So this is going to be where we start layering all of this hair on top of, and this is going to create all of our height. So it's really important that this be like super set in place. And normally I wouldn't recommend going in so closely with hairspray in such high quantities, but realistically you're not going to see any of this hair except for the ends, because the next layer is going to sit on top and then on top. So honestly, it doesn't really matter. And it just means that your hair is going to be more durable. Oh no. My thinking is that if you're going to all these great lengths to have nice hair, you might as well go to great lengths to keep it nicer for longer. I don't know, to maximize, yeah, like the usage of this wig that you've put all this effort into. So in my opinion, you know, it's a wig. It's supposed to be used. So you're supposed to tease it. You're supposed to pack it in. You're supposed to cake it in hairspray, because that's why it's a wig and not your actual hair, right? I don't know if I'm alone in this, but some people get mad because, like, I don't know, there are different ways to tease hair in such a way that it, I guess, prolongs the longevity of the wig. But the thing is, if you've got a style that stays in that style for as long as you want it to, then you don't need to worry about the longevity of the wig, because, you know, you're not necessarily like restyling it all the time and it doesn't actually have an impact. I don't know, I might be not making sense, but anyway. So I've just gone in with more of that shampoo. I keep doing that. Conditioner, water, hairspray combo or whatever. And we're just going to continue teasing the rest of the top section of the hair. And teasing it forwards, teasing it backwards. When you are working with curls this small or this tight, I definitely recommend having a second brush, one that's not a teasing brush, because you can see, like, sure, you can brush it and get it organized, but then it's just going to do this frizzy moment. So I definitely recommend getting like either a paddle brush, or if you have a proper wig brush, then those would be a lot easier just to sort of organize the curls before you tease them, or after you've teased them, to clean up the roots and things like that. Unfortunately, not all brushes are universal, and teasing brushes kind of only really have the one purpose, right? But you've got other things like a round brush or a comb, or an afro pick like this that I use to push in the root. A lot of these things, like, you know, this teasing brush or that afro pick, are all pretty cheap, and they will save you a lot of time and effort down the road. So you might as well go ahead and do yourself a favor, you know? There we go, and the next section is done. It's important to remember to keep fanning it out, because otherwise you're gonna end up with this sort of like weird bouffant type thing. So I'm just gonna freeze the roots. And I've also started to carry some of the hairspray out a little bit further to the mid-lengths. That's just because we don't want the hair, I guess, it's hard to describe, but like, the hair's gonna be limp if only the root is sprayed with hairspray, and then the rest of the curls are left to move around at their own free will. So you kind of want to freeze the mid-length as well, and that way you retain all of that height where it is for, I guess, longer. Again, a lot of my wigs seem to be styled with durability in mind, and that's, I suppose, part of what makes my styling my styling. So if you want wigs that last longer, go to khakiwigs.com. No, I'm just kidding. Or you can follow my tutorials and do them yourself. It is time to move on to another can of hairspray. So I believe yesterday I started with a full can of hairspray, so if you can do basic maths, we've gone through one whole can of hairspray for hair this big. Generally, the rule of thumb is the bigger the wig, the more hairspray you're going to be using. And hey, here we are. All right, I am on the last section before the stuff in the hairline. And honestly, the process is kind of the same. See how I'm sort of fanning the hair out with my teasing? So this section here, I'm kind of going diagonally out, and this section here, I'm going directly back. And then I'm going to mirror that with the other half of this hair. And then we're going to do the same on this one. You'll notice I'm not teasing it twice. And that's just because we're really close to the hairline at this point and the hair's already going straight up. So we don't necessarily need to build volume at the front. Now you can see a lot of it is starting to take shape. So the next thing I'm going to do is just make sure these two sections don't come apart from each other by teasing them both together here in the middle. Now those sections are joined by way of teasing. So yeah, before I spray the root, I'm just going to make sure that there's no, like, I'm going to talk you through it in case this isn't reading on the camera, but like you can see the general shape is going straight up, but there are lots of these hairs that poke forwards and out. And so when we're doing the next layer of hair, the final layer to go on top of that, we want a nice smooth hairline. And if we spray all these little flyaways sticking out and around and cookie crazy, then the hairline that we're going to lay on top of it, this is going to poke through, and it just makes your life a lot harder when you're trying to like get it all smooth, because you're going to have to pick out these big loops that are already frozen with hairspray. So before we freeze it, we're not brushing out the teasing, but we're just making sure it's a more flat surface for the next layer to sit on. And that can carry out all the way down to even the sides. So go ahead and do yourself a favor and brush out some of that real messiness at this point here. You can even use the tail end of your comb to sort of go in from the side and catch loops and pull them out. But you don't want to dig it directly into the hair that way, because you're going to end up A, getting your brush stuck, and B, pulling out some of that teasing that we do want there. So you kind of just want a shallow pick, like you want to go in from the side. I don't know if I'm overcomplicating this. I'm going to shut up. Now is when you want to be more concerned with your hairspray placement, because at this point, if I go in with the hair dryer and I just keep adding in lots of hairspray like I have been so far, then there's a chance it's going to be visible because we're so close to the hairline. So you want to go in with like light layers, but many of them. And you also want to have your hairspray further back, that way it's not going to catch in the hair in these big globs that dry white in this dark hair. Then we go in with the same conditioner thing. And this time, we're probably gonna need to be a bit more gentle. And just brush through, let those curls define themselves with this mixture that we've put in. And you also want to make sure you're incorporating a little bit of it into the previous layer, because otherwise you're going to get like, I guess, yeah, weird teased together sections of hair that sort of flop forward because they're not attached to the rest of the wig. So yeah, let yourself brush it into the previous layer. I'll show you what I mean when I say incorporate it into the previous layer. So this is all the hair that we've just teased here, and this is all from the previous layer. So let yourself brush it a little bit into the previous layer. And that way when you're dancing and you put your head down or something, you're not gonna have this layer of hair that just separates and falls forward. We can go back in with some more of the conditioner during the final touch-up if we end up mucking with some of these curls. The water kind of undoes some of the freezing that the hairspray does. So, you know, after you blast it, it's not completely set in stone. So the next thing that I'm going to do is the hairline. So honestly, it's a very simple thing with a wig like this. In this style, it's all just kind of pushed up and out of the face. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to take the side sections and do them first. You can see with the rollers, there's some weird, I guess, gaps and things going on in the hairline. So to help with that, I'm just gonna put this nozzle head on my hairdryer and heat up the hair while holding it straight out. Not the whole section of hair, just near the hairline where I want to, I guess, remove some of those weird gaps. And hold it there while it cools. I'm going to remove the first maybe centimeter of hair and just focus on this back section first. And I'm going to tease it and pull it through into the hair behind it. So to give you a better angle, what I'm doing is I'm teasing it and pulling it through and sort of into this hair behind it that's already been teased. And once you've done that a couple of times, I like to spray it and then freeze it while also pushing it back with my hairdryer. Just so that when we continue teasing the rest of it, there's part of it that's really incorporated to the rest of the wig and it's gonna stay. Eventually, you're gonna stop teasing it and just start pulling the hair through like this. So I'm not building up any cloud of teasing or anything. I'm simply just sort of scooping the hair and then brushing it back bit by bit. So the next step is to start smoothing out that hairline. And because we didn't tease that last bit, it should actually be pretty easy. There's gonna be some teasing that's visible and that's fine. You can't eliminate all of the smoothing that you're gonna have to do with your wigs. When it comes to the hair that's not attached to the lace but is near it, like down here, it's gonna be covered by your ear anyway. So look, it's good to have it nice and, I guess, organized, but it doesn't have to be super neat or super pretty because you're not gonna see it. So there's no point really brushing out all of that hair. What I'm gonna do is I've just sprayed the hair that is closest to the root, and what you can do is you can use your brush and hold it straight out. And you can freeze it in place while you begin to work your way down the hair towards the ends. And I find that just helps keep everything organized, because once you've got the roots in place, then it becomes easier to focus on the mid-lengths and ends. And look, once you're starting to get super happy with it, there are different ways that you can do this next part of sort of freezing that hairline where you want it. So you can attach a whole bunch of clips in there, but I find they leave indents and generally create a bit of chaos. So what I particularly am a fan of is I will use my hand or the end of my brush and just hold the hair in place while freezing it with a hairdryer. It requires a little bit of coordination, but I don't know, I prefer it this way. The other downside is you will get hairspray all over your hands. And look, I'm sure it's not harmful, but it doesn't feel great. Be careful not to burn your hand. Turn down the heat of your hairdryer if you're doing my method. And look, it's not like the clips are completely useless. What I will then do is, after the hair's been sort of frozen in place, if I'm moving on to work on the ends, I don't want to pull on that freshly laid out, I guess, hairline. So I'm going to use the clips here to just give it an extra hand while I focus on the mid-lengths and the ends. If you've done your brushing out, it should actually be relatively easy to end up with something that you like. So I'm just going to remove those clips before they start causing any weird demarcation. And just do the roots one more time before moving on to the mid-lengths. Cool, and then you can worry about this sort of mess that you've created here by using your teasing brush and coming through and messing with all of those defined curls you had before. You can deal with that later. For now, I just want to focus on getting the hairline up and smooth, and then we'll work on the fine tuning. So I'm just going to mirror exactly what I did on that side, on the other side, before going in with the last amount of hair, which is the center front, if you want a sewing pattern terminology. Cool, and it looks like there's not too much smoothing that we have to do with this side. Sometimes that's just how it works. One side needs more work than the other. And in this situation, I'm not going to complain. It's important to check that the angle that you're brushing the hair out and back is the same on both sides. Otherwise, you're going to look lopsided, but you're not probably going to be able to see or tell what the problem is. I used to get that sometimes when I was doing big blowouts and things like that. One hair would be pushed up and back, and the other one would sort of be just out to the side. And I want to see how that's going to look after we're done with the conditioning of the hair. Give myself a little preview. So incorporating this hair with the hair behind it. And I'm good with that. So after you've incorporated the ends together, you can spray them, and it's with a texture like this where they're always crossing and touching and blah, blah, blah. The hairspray really gets to do its job, because ultimately all it does is create bonds between contact points of different hair, right? So the more contact points you have, the stronger the hairspray effect is going to be. I kind of approach styling wigs from a very engineer's standpoint, which is funny because I was actually in high school going to either do physics or study law. And look at me now, Mum. Now, if you ever get obsessed with like the fine detail placement of some of the hair, like if you see here, there's like a larger-ish gap, but it's not necessarily worth undoing all of that smoothing that you did. What you can do is you can go in with a pin, you can just sort of place the hair where you want it before going in and freezing it. This is what you see a lot of like the Instagram reel wig maker video things doing, either with like a pin or like a French or U-pin, something like this. Ultimately, doesn't matter what you use, so long as you sort of place the hair where you do want it and then freeze it in the spot. So now you know. When it comes to the rest of the hair, I'm gonna do it in two different sections. We're gonna start by blow drying the hair so that there's not these weird separation lines between where the rollers were. So I'll start on the side closer to me, and just like the sides, hold it straight at a little bit of tension and just give it one of these. And it's important to let it cool while you're holding it nice and straight, like this. What's also good is to take this section and sort of do the same, but pull it out a bit more so that it's in line with the way the hair is going here. Otherwise, you're gonna have this weird gap here too. It's more of the same story, so I'm just gonna section out this front 2 centimeters of hair. And if it wasn't obvious, it's because we're going to end up smoothing that section anyway, so it's not important that it gets caught when we're teasing this like back area. So we can pop it out to make sure that it doesn't, and then we have less work to do. And then we start to just pull it through. Now, I'm gonna tease the other side as well. Right, and then you can see there's this gap between the two sections that we just teased, so I'm just going to incorporate the two of them together before we go in with locking in the hairline. And what you can even do with there's construction in the building. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it through my microphone. Anyway, what you can do with a style like this where everything's just pushed directly up and back, we can, if you've got one of these tripods like mine, you can angle it so that you've got gravity working in your favor. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do, because work smarter, not harder. and just brushing it directly up and out of the face. And then when it comes to the sections near where we've already done, you just kind of want to make sure that instead of going directly up, you're kind of going more out so that you will eventually match up with the bits on the side that are going directly out. So I'm going to keep it flat while I'm working on it here, but I just wanted to show you. I've sort of worked first on where the middle front section meets the side sections. So these, I'm going to call them diagonal fronts. They are in place. Now it's time to get the center front directly up and out of the face so that we can finish this wig. And I'm just doing that by simply brushing straight back and up, but not with too much pressure because you don't want to dig in too far and then undo some of that teasing that the hair is resting on. And I'm pretty happy with this. So I am going to lay it back down flat, but just to show you where we're at the moment. And with this section, you can use quite a lot of hairspray so long as you smooth out the globs. Like, if you have a look, you can see how this hairspray has settled here in bubbles. I don't know if you can really tell, but it's there at the very root in bubbles. And that's fine because at the moment it's still wet. And so you can kind of slick those bubbles down and slick the rest of the hairline down with your finger. That way when it dries, you're not gonna see these white clumps of hairspray. And what I'm doing now is just placing my mid-lengths before I lock in any more of that hairline. And yeah, I think I'm okay with that. So I'm going to begin the process of working from the root out and just slicking that hair up and back. And you'll notice me putting my hand there to stop any of that heat from traveling up and loosening the rest of the curl. And I'm just going to go back and forth between sitting up and standing down the wig. And I'm really happy with the way this side is sitting. All right, so now the final step is to just keep layering on hairspray everywhere except the ends. You kind of want to really lock in with hairspray because we're going to do one final conditioner and water mixture on the ends to make these less frizzy. But before then, we need a really rock solid root to mids so that we don't mess with any of this placement that we've just done here. So I'm going to go through and I'm going to like really layer on this hairspray and then just make sure there's no blobs or glob. Okay, now it's time for the last step, which is just a final defrizzify of a lot of the hair. So I've made some more conditioner water mixture because I ran out before. I'm simply just going to very lightly, trying not to spray the roots of the hair. I'm just gonna kind of go around in this general halo, and I'm not just gonna do the hairline bit, I'm gonna do these bits that were affected by when we were brushing this out, and just generally go through and let those curls define themselves again. And it pays to be gentle for this step because you don't want to pull any of this hair out of the placement that we've just worked so hard to get it in. So, yeah, exercise caution here. And then we're gonna check the back, make sure that that's all sorted and looking good and curly and beautiful before locking in with a final casing of hairspray. And when it comes to doing hairspray like this, it's important to sort of switch up your angles. You'll notice that I'm sort of throwing my hands around in this weird circle shape because I kind of want to give the hairspray the best chance to really get in there, which means coming at the hair from different angles so that it's not blocked at the surface. And another thing that I think, in my brain at least, helps is if you just give the hair a little like push or whatever. In my brain, I might be crazy, in my brain, you're going to make some more points of contact happen with that little push, and it's just gonna strengthen the overall integrity of the do. Again, I might be overcomplicating it, but this is just how my brain works. So yeah, just give it a little, and then that's it. This is the whole wig. Let me put it on for you, because sometimes it's hard to gauge the height when it's sitting on a wig block. So I'll be right back and I'll show you the finished result. This is the finished wig. She's glamour. She's drag. She's literally huge. So yeah, I don't know. I call this my, what do I call it? My disco perm? Disco dancing? It's on the website, I don't know. If you want one of these styled for you, you can check out the website, khakiwigs.com. Otherwise, follow along this tutorial, DIY it, and send me the picture because I'm nosy and I want to see how all my little babies are doing. So, yeah. If you want, you can follow Khaki Wigs on Instagram and send me a picture there, or my personal one, Brooke_Khaki. But yeah, I genuinely would love to see your guys' version of what I've walked you through today. So, get into it. Anyway, hope this helped, and I will be checking the comments if you have any questions for the next couple days. So yeah, send them on through, and I'll see you next time. Bye.